you very much. Thank you, Mr. Lepper, and believe we have some temporal solutions to our problems this afternoon. All right. So we have a nominee from our division for our individual. So as a background, each year, the ESBA honors 6 outstanding first-year teachers with the individual award. School boards may nominate any first-year K-12 teacher who has taught in another school division, which is a member of the board. So this year we have our nominee, Mrs. Christy Kronig, first-year student from the Sacred Heart School in Tasko. In your packages, you will see very fantastic support information about the work she's doing as a new teacher in our school there. Like just some of the codes, has student-centered classroom environments allows for active learning and student inquiry. To recognize that Christy adapts her teaching method and expectation and is working at modifying and adapting student materials. So all of these are good qualities for a first-year teacher understanding your classroom and how to work to the benefit of the student. So she will be our nominee to our committee. So on this note, Sis Christy Kronig, thank you for your nominations, and we recognize that, and we wish you the best. And after those nominations, we'll see how that results turn out. Thank you. Any further comments? All right. Once again, congratulations on your nomination. Okay, we will go to, yes, Excellence in Catholic Education Award.
At this time, I'll have Assistant Superintendent Malloy maybe just speak a little bit about this year's nominee.
I'm very pleased to inform trustees that Erin Barrett, grade 5 teacher at Father Leduc Catholic School, is the Excellence in Catholic Education Award winner for our division. Erin has been with the division for many, many years, a number of schools, teaching in Wetaskiwin and Leduc over her years. She is described as someone who permeates her faith in all that she does. Her Principal Schneider, spoke of her as someone who considers her that her students are actually her students, and her children, and she's leading them through faith. She's very active in the school community on the Religious Education Committee, and she's active in her parish as well. So she's our winner for our division, and we're very proud of her accomplishments.
So congratulations to Erin as well. Okay. We now move into our action items. 6.1 Board Policies 7.
That our board get second reading as presented.
Okay, so that's the motion. I will ask for discussions now. Okay. So you all seen some of the changes on board policy starting. Look at your page. Okay. Ms. Beth, do you want to give us the changes that are coming? The policy, yeah. Right there, up on the.
That the honorarium is meant to recognize events and functions that are part of the board's forum. And the trustees expect it. And then the per diem are ones that about to recognize events and functions and that are not part of our core work, but it's an optional attendance for the trustee. These ones kind of are so that you're more inclined with your school and the parish.
All right. So more some difference of more involvement in community work and then more of the additional work as well. Okay, thank you for bringing those forward. Any further comments?
I just want to, on the second one there, it does enhance the trustees' work, and I think that's really important. It says attendance to the event enhances the trustees' work. It's not always required, but I think it's very important that we do those things because it enhances our knowledge and our relationship.
Thank you. That being said, there are no further questions. I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? Yeah. Oppose? Okay. So we have one opposition. Thank you. Six point two, our capital plan. Yeah, trustee. That's in there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So each year, the board submits a 3-year capital plan to the province for consideration. The province looks at all plans and considers a variety of factors, including the school's impact on the health and safety of students, the condition of the building, enrollment trends, as well as functionality and programming. So the long-range planning already looked and reviewed this capital plan, and today, if everybody is in agreement, we are going to make a motion. If the capital plan is agreed upon, and there it is. That the you can read it yourself.
Yeah. Back of the package, okay. All right.
And I can make that motion.
Okay, just 1 second. Any discussion? Okay, I see no up. Okay, I would like to call the question. All in favor of the capital plan as presented? All right, thank you. And again, just my comment, we have to stay consistent with our capital plans because we know government takes years to see your first capital plan. We are now beginning to understand that. So, like I said, if we know the needs and they haven't changed, they'll get worse going forward. So as we leave it consistent, that will be very good for the board. So I really appreciate that. Okay, Mr. Lark, I believe I missed something here. Appendix G. Where did we put that?
Right, it'll be at the end, so it'll be number 6.7.
6.7? Okay, 6.
Oh, sorry, 6.8.
Okay, 6.8. And then when did we put the do?
It's at 6.7.
6.7. Yeah, sorry. 6.7. I don't know what you changed on you. You don't see it is, you know. All right, thank you. So we will move to 6.3 mass intentions. Mr. Bushra.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Board of Trustees has a longstanding tradition of making a $100 donation to the parishes where we have grade 12s graduating from those communities. So the $100 donation is donation to the parish for mass intentions and recognition of those grade 12 students at that mass. So in the background report, you have the 4 high schools in the division and their mass times that those donations would support. So there is a potential motion there should the board wish to proceed with that long-standing tradition.
Okay, thank you. So that are the recommendations here. Have someone take the, yeah, I'll make the motions. Go ahead.
I move that the board approve special mass intentions and individual recognition of the Littleton high school graduates to a maximum of $100 donation to the local parish per graduation class for the 2022-2023 school year.
Thank you. Trustee Leonard. All right. Any discussions, comments? Yeah, that's my comments here. Then let's know those dates, and trustees in these communities, please avail yourself on these days. To be there, just like we talked about, right? Enhance our work and our connections to the community and the church. That being said, I'd like to call a question. All in favor? Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you. Trustees. Okay. We'll go to 6.4. Yeah, 6.4. Yeah, Trustee Miller. You go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the board approve the education fee rates as presented for the 2023-2024 school year.
There, and we've all seen those. Any discussion? Comments? Sorry.
If I could just make.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
That's fine. I really appreciate the finance committee's work on this, and we took in consideration the feedback that we had from the survey. It was a big part of our consideration and making recommendations in for the board moving forwards. I think that was a good outreach into our community and engagement of our community to help us inform and make decisions.
All right. So I have a question. The bring your own device. How do we monitor that operationally? How do we?
In what sense, Mr. Chair?
Say like, if a kid is sign up and they bring their own device and the day they came to school and don't have that device, then what?
So each of the schools still has a ratio of computers, no different than any of the other schools. Quite often, those computers are utilized for just the purpose that you identified, as well as during the day when batteries are fully discharged and students have no access to technology, then they'll grab one of those computers from the cart. So those schools have the same amount of computers that every other school does, same expenses as every other school does.
But here we're giving $5 because they have their own devices, right? That's what, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you. I'll try and answer this the best I can, and maybe hand it to Ms. Blackwood, but this was a big discussion within the committee, and this is what we as a committee are coming to the board with, because it was noted within the survey that this is an issue between the bring your own device schools and the schools that supply devices. There was notes and comments within the survey that we did receive that the bring your own device schools shouldn't have this limits for that very reason, because they're bringing their own device, therefore there shouldn't be the same cost in that area. And we did recognize that there is a cost still to the school for certain aspects of that for devices that need to be replaced or borrowed, lent on short-term areas. So I didn't miss anything there.
Amen. All right, those explanations accepted to me. Yes. Is there any other comments? No? Okay, all in favor then of the motion on? Okay, carried. I completely thank you. Yeah, continue going, I believe. That 6.5. Yeah. Yeah, who's taking 6.4? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I move that the board approve the fee rate as presented for the 2023 and 2024 school year.
All
I could add
right.
some comments to that.
Open it up for discussion and comments then. Yeah, go ahead and
Thank you. Just to highlight that the committee did not identify a need to increase or change the existing fees. However, there was a recognition of wage rate increases to support staff for this service.
okay, to- Okay. Any other comments? Questions? Yeah, please.
We had talked earlier about a joint use agreement. And people could use our gyms, we could use their. things. Did anything come of that? Or does anybody know?
But that sounds like.
Mr. Laka is still working on some of this.
With regards to our programs with non-joint use agreements, currently with the city of Beaumont, we have one that's, we have one in place. We're in the process of starting the joint use and planning agreement with the city of Beaumont. What we put it on hold as a group with us, public board, until the Francophone board, which is building a new school. They should be up and running this fall. So we want to make sure that they could participate in that agreement. We're looking for all three school boards as well as the city of Beaumont being in place. So for your particular board, that process is just at the very introductory stage in terms of expanding our existing joint use agreement into one that involves the Francophone board as well. Until now, we still operate under our existing joint use facility agreement, which is handled centrally with the city of Beaumont. With our other areas, we're in the process. We've got one completed, but it was a fairly expedited one with the county of Pinoca because it was a fairly simple agreement. We're not anticipating that we need a school site that's rural at this point in time. Wolf Creek is part of that agreement as well as the county. So that one has now been executed. But that's the first of many to be done. We've got, we're in the process, final, I would call it final stages of the tripartite agreement with the city of Lacombe, and we started discussions with the Lacombe County.
Thank you.
Thank you for that information. And at our sister board meeting, we are meeting with Wild Rose. Again, I know they'll be reaching out to you, and it makes sense if we can have provided agreements on one page, then everything is as marked with the cities and the counties. So they were interested in reaching out to us to make sure that we are all doing the same. Oh, really? So I'll now call the question. Motion okay, all in favor? All right, this is carried unanimously now. We'll now go to all right. Get the combined, let's finish that before 6, 7, and 6, 8. Okay, 6.6. So what I would like to do is, Mr. Bouchard, if you wouldn't mind going over this with us, as you have gathered some more information and some possible ideas, please.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll just touch on some highlights in the background report and draw those to the board's attention. So by way of some historical information, on November 17th, Wolf Creek did notify the families in Lacombe County and Star Catholic that they were doing a reconfiguration, and they had made their decision that the families in South Township Road 400 and west of Range Road 282 would no longer be bused effective September 2024 to Lacombe. So that impacted 8 of our families, a total of 17 students. 4 of those families reside in what are actually Red Deer Catholic formed areas. And 4 of those families, or 10 students, reside in unformed Lacombe County districts of 349, 549, and 2160. And there is a map attached in the package. In December, Wolf Creek communicated to Star Catholic that they would grandfather some of their high school students for an additional 2 years if they started high school in Lacombe. They would also transport our students for that same period if they could do so in an efficient manner. So for example, if one of those high school students was on a bus route and our students could be picked up efficiently, they could jump on that same bus. So I had a meeting with parents on January 30th to inform them of the changes and to talk about some of the details, and Trustee Tugwood was there as well. You'll recall at the February board meeting, there was a delegation of parents who came to speak to the Board of Trustees, and they advocated for a couple of things. First off, they requested transportation to Lacombe on an ongoing basis, and secondly, they asked if there would be support from trustees with a consultant to help with a formation should it be their choice. Recently, on March 9th, the division did receive the provincial funding manual, which did kind of shed some light on some new funding possibilities. So in that backgrounder, in an italicized portion that is on page 61 of the funding manual, in unformed areas, if the division transports students and those parents of those students sign off on a transportation agreement or a student transportation declaration, the transporting division would receive some revenue for that. So the Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Lockhart, and myself, we did some preliminary estimates of what that funding and those revenues would be to the division. And they are highlighted in the package. For example, 5 students would bring approximately $9,000 of revenue, 10 students, $18,000, and 15 students would bring approximately $27,000 of revenue. This is nice, and it's meaningful in 2 ways. First off, the division was previously block funded for its transportation funding, and we would have seen no additional funding for this group of students. And secondly, as we sought clarification, and it's our understanding that those areas, even if they're not formed, we could transport those students if the parents did the declaration. That is quite a significant change in the funding manual. Moving along, at the previous board meeting, trustees asked administration to see if we could get an updated cost on transportation in that area. We did so with a provider of transportation contractor who gave us a rough estimate of $69,000 to run a bus in those 3 districts, understanding that if more stops are added, the cost would go up. But that is a rough estimate and would have to go to tender for finalization. So in the board package, there are a number of possible considerations before the board. There are 7 outlined, and they range from anything from not putting an identified number of students to be transported, whether the parents should have to form or not form, and whether the division would even support busing in those areas. So there are 7 options associated or for consideration of the board. I will also just maybe point out to the public and to trustees that, you know, the decision could possibly be reviewed periodically. Administration recommends perhaps every 3 years. However, that is at your discretion. Also, I would mention that there are implications to the communities in Beaumont, where historically trustees have said to those families looking for busing that they needed to meet the threshold of 10 students. So however the board lands on this decision today, I would suggest or recommend that you mirror that in those communities, should you change your position that you've had historically. So then in the last page, there are a number of motions related to the possibilities that were presented in the background, or the 7 motions that reflect the 7 possible options. There are also 2 motions related to formation. So as you recall, the parents also requested assistance for formation. Number 1 with a consultant, number 2 with the consultant to assist with the census part of the formation. So the board could choose to support that direction as well with those 2 motions related to the consultant. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I hope that provides some background. There are some maps as well that may assist in your discussions. Are there any questions?
Is it customary for the census to be covered?
We are not sure. So in the background, we do suggest that we would connect with Alberta Education to see if they would even support that. Alberta Education has been very strong in their messaging that the process needs to be driven by parents. Typically, the census, I would say, is completed by parents. I won't say that a consultant has never done a census, but I think typically it is done by parents.
My question is if, right now they do not need to be formed, they just have to sign a declaration by October in order for transportation, provided we provide a bus.
Correct.
Suppose in a year or so, or 2 years, they decide they want to get formed, they can do that.
That is
At
correct.
any time they can do that.
Correct.
Right.
But those, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the recap here. So this is what is before us. So I will have us, want to take a moment to really look at the information.
Can I just add that when we're looking at busing, it's going to change as of 2024. For each student receives a certain amount for transportation, depending on who provides that transportation. So right now, some of our students that are over that now the 1 kilometer walk in home, they could be picked up by that same bus, which would raise that number. And then that money would go to us rather than going to Wolf Creek. So that would just change that number from 10, it might be 15 or more, I don't know exactly.
That is a possibility. That is something that we would have to check into with our transportation department to see if that run would be feasible run. Ride times is always a consideration, especially when you're transporting students from rural parts, and then you're adding an in the city run as well, which I think is what you're suggesting.
Well, it's the other side of the track, but it is in the city, so but it's further than further than
current
2
guidelines.
kilometers, yeah. And they would have to come that way to get to the school.
The one thing of note is that the closer you get to the school, the less money you do get for transportation. So the numbers and figures that are quoted in this backgrounder would not reflect an approximate cost per student as they get closer, because we are funded by distance for each rider. So that would likely bring in less revenue than a student who's further out.
But it would still bring in
Some money.
amount of revenue.
Yeah.
Revenue.
Thank you again for the recap. Okay, so these are the possible motions before us. I will ask, for a motion to be put on the floor so we can.
Over.
Easy part. Sorry, go
Can
ahead.
I just ask one more question before we?
Yeah.
So with the quote, the unofficial quote of 69,000, that's just for 1 year. So we also have to keep in mind that cost could significantly go up based on insurance costs and fuel costs and such as well.
Yeah.
Because
It's just
they're only giving that as a 1 year quote, right?
Correct, and that's only to transport those families in those 3 districts.
I might, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
With regards to the quote, there's a couple of things. One is, yes, we had actually said that for those families, we even might be on something smaller than a typical 71 passenger bus. So that's the first thing. The other thing is when we go to tender, we will usually tender for a multi-year. Typically, we're doing 3 years at a time in terms of contract. So we would have the seller to know what our costs are on a tender for the 3 years, because that's typically the second on our transportation contracts.
Thank you.
So that the board supports the appropriate implementation of contracted bus service inclusive of the districts 349, 549, and 2160, provided a threshold of 10 student riders be met. The board is committed to guaranteeing such service for 3 years with a review at that time. And I would like to add it on that under that amount, that they will receive their own transport. They will receive a transportation grant for providing their own transportation. If I'm wording that properly.
May I suggest some assistance?
Yes, they do.
Without meeting the threshold of 10 riders, family will receive a transportation.
Yes, thank you.
Let's get on the motion and then see.
Without meeting a threshold, and students parents be provided with the transportation. Is that correct, Don?
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to share the screen publicly.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering if that wording in the last sentence could be cleaned up a little bit.
Okay.
I'm wondering if it could say, should the threshold of 10 students not be met, parents transporting their own children would be provided with a transportation grant.
With the threshold. That's
Yeah, you do want to do that. Parents transporting their own children would receive transportation. Would be. Or will be.
transportation grant.
All right. So that's the motion before us. So
Mr. Chair, if I can ask for a clarification, is that with new provisions of transferring funds? Or is it irrespective of the transfer of funding that's?
I think then you have that, yes.
Yes.
Out.
Do we need to have
There's no revenue if we don't transport those students. For that, that's important that trustees understand that. That declaration by parents results in additional revenue only if we transport them. So with the last addition that has been added, there would be no additional revenue for the division that would be out of pocket.
Just one second.
So do you want to have those separate motions or leave it lumped as one?
I would. What's the will of the board? Because we should remember there is something like a voucher system. It's a declaration to be made to say, yes, this money is coming this way. So if we do put this down without clarification of that, and somebody declared their consultation somewhere and coming to write with us, even though because we've opened this up and they're in these 3 districts, where does that put us? Right. So think about that for a minute here. Yeah, Trustee Marshall, go ahead.
So my question is partly in line with this topic that we're talking about right now with the cost. So right now, if we were to do 2 students on this bus, we would, with the grant that is given to us, it would be $18,000. The projected cost of the bus is $69,000. So we're at a loss of $51,000. My question would be, in our division, what is the average loss? Because we do take a loss on our transportation. What is our average loss per student that we are taking right now on the existing bus routes?
Across the entire division and
On average,
across, well, the average is
Different.
key. Are we talking about all students or just transported students in terms of the average?
I think the number that you're looking for is how much are we transferring from instruction
Yeah.
to transportation?
yes,
What's our loss in transportation? That's the question.
that's my question.
$250,000.
$250,000. So what would that equate to for the transportation of the students? Like on a per student? Because this would be like
Per
1,800,
student,
right?
yeah, per student, we're looking, probably going back to what we quoted in the survey, which is $732 per student in terms of.
So this would be a
Transport,
significant.
transport per student.
Okay,
So I'd also like to mention, before this new change, we were going to be providing parents with a transportation grant. We didn't bust them. Right, and that was just going to come out of, there was no extra funds for that time either. So this actually isn't a big change if this happens. Because it's the same as if we already told the parents they would be provided with transportation.
Correct.
Okay, trustees, so that's the motion before us. And a piece of that motion, like admin was recommending again, about a declaration. Okay. Any further comments or addition to that? Yeah,
Don't we have to have the declaration added to that?
so that's what we can add. You want to add it to this motion or make that as a separate motion?
Does it need to say provided the parents have declared?
Yeah, we could just change it.
Do we need to add that piece to the chart?
It would provide clarity, so after 10 student riders, it would say 10 student riders, comma, whose parents have signed the declaration. No, in the
At the
other
top
one,
there, the First 10 students.
yeah. Whose parents.
Okay, so then back down there. Okay. So now this is clean up and specific, right? Because that declaration will, go ahead, Trustee Miller.
Thank you. Just for clarity, with the addition of that new portion, would that negate if the parents, would this motion still make sense as worded with that addition, if the parents decided to actually go ahead and form, if that was.
Probably wouldn't matter if they decided to go ahead.
Well, they wouldn't need the declaration if
They wouldn't need a declaration part in there, but. Don't. If they did become formed, it wouldn't make any difference. As far as the.
Well, if that became a formed area or formed areas,
Civil rights.
then we would have to apply for transportation funding in a different manner.
All right, thank you for the guidance, Richmond guidance on this issue. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just clarity on that last point. If we have to apply for funding in a different manner, is that funding the same as what we received in the backgrounder?
Yes.
So it wouldn't be different.
It can be changed if in a year they decide to form, or if they decide to form now.
That's my understanding. Is that yours, Secretary Treasurer Laka? That the funding rates are the same formed or not?
Yeah, what has been described to us by the department is that if there's a signed declaration form and transportation is provided, it doesn't matter formations, not formations, locations, even under transportation agreement.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
not to keep
No, we want to
We're on
get
the
it
same
right.
topic, but so if they form, then we are obligated to provide transportation, is that,
Or a grant?
or a grant? Okay. It's okay.
All right, trustees, do I know any further comment that the motion before us? Okay. All right, so this is. Yeah, we have the review dates, number of students, so we're good there. This is just the first motion of transportation, and then we have the other possible for formation. So on this regard, if there are no further comments, I would like to call the question. Yeah, so we will go all in favor of the motion as is on the board. Just 1 second. You want to reread the motion,
Okay.
please?
That the board support the implementation of contracted bus service inclusive of the districts 349, 549, and 2160, provided a threshold of 10 student riders whose parents have signed the transfer of funding declaration be met. The board is committed to guaranteeing such service for 3 years with a review at that time. Should a threshold of 10 student riders not be met, parents transporting their own children will be provided with a transportation grant.
Thank you. All right. Now I'd like to call the question. Those in favor of the motion? Yep, all in favor? Thank you. All right. There is the other request that came in of the possible motion related to formation. And that is also before you. All right, I would like someone to put the motion before us so we can, go ahead, Dr. Lennon.
I put forward the motion that the board support the associated cost of a consultant to assist families in the home county district with the formation of capital pool districts, excluding the costs associated in the census portion of the formation.
Okay, so that's the second possible motion before us. I will open it up for discussion and comment. Okay, that's then go ahead.
Yes, I would just stress the importance of those families. If they are looking to receive funding from the school board for this, at the moment, the voucher system is in place, but it could change it. You know, we have a different government. It's not It's not a foregone conclusion, and that's why formation would be important for them to do. So I would just encourage them to try to form those areas if they can, and it sounds like they believe that they could form if they wanted to, so.
Go ahead.
I second trustee Leonard's idea that I would support these families to become formed. I think that says that we're a Catholic board. So hopefully they will choose to do that in the near future.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, there are no further comments. There's a motion on the floor here. I'd like to call the question. All in favor of the second motion with respect to formation? Okay. We will carried. Okay, we would like to take 10 minutes recess here. All right.